So my name's Lois Scharf. I am the course leader for the MA in Social Pedagogy Leadership. The Human Learning System, the Exploring the New World report, has become a core kind of text on our MA, and hopefully you're going to see how social pedagogy has real synergy with the Human Learning System, and picking upon some of the points that people have been talking about in the webinars over the last 2 days. And so being an academic, highbrow academic references are really important, and you will see some of our key thinkers here. Bananarama, 1982, very important to us. It ain't what you do, it's the way that you do it. If you don't know this song, go and YouTube it after this webinar and have a dance around your kitchen. But this is really kind of key. We've heard a lot about what we need to do, and in social care, social work, health, public sector, we have a lot of focus on the what. Social pedagogy gets us to think about the how. How do we do this? And hopefully I'm going to cover a little bit more of this as my presentation goes on. So very quickly, in a very brief overview, social pedagogy is about well-being and not welfare. It's about the deliberate use of relationships. It's about bringing the human back into work. So you can see already there's a real link with the Human Learning System. And again, I think this crisis, this COVID crisis, we're seeing much more human practice, much more connections with each other. It's also about recognising that people have inherent capabilities and that everybody has potential. So we don't use the term service users, we use the term people we support, people we work alongside, and our colleagues and people in our teams. And so those recognising potential works on kind of every level, really. It's a real focus on learning. So again, another link to Human Learning Systems, that there is a real focus on learning in the broadest possible sense, and that actually learning gives us power to make change. And the people that we support in our practice, actually supporting them to learn to deal with things differently means that they will make positive changes that will be sustainable. Also, the other key thing is about data. So again, we talk about data in the broadest sense of the term, and using data for learning rather than just measuring outcomes. This is really about learning, reflective practice, reflexive teamwork, about thinking about how do we change things for the better. Here we've got Sammy the Snail, and this again is about how we have completely become obsessed with systems. So the shell on Sammy is the systems, and we have focused far too much on the systems, and we forget that there is a real person attached to that. So it's moving beyond the technical procedures and looking again at how relationships can form better outcomes for people. It's very much relationship centered. It's very much about using hermeneutics and understanding people's historical streams and how they see the world, and how that may well be different to the way that we see the world. It's about using people's relational universe. So again, thinking about who they're connected with, and negative and positive relationships. Again, it's about meaningful belonging. So this is really key. So again, it links back to the Human Learning System, and this also links to the work that we're seeing that's happening now in this current crisis, is that actually we all need to feel like we belong to something, and that meaningful belonging is really important. And as professionals, and using a social pedagogical approach, we use our relationships to what we call bridge and bond. So we will support people to help them. And so thinking about Ruth's presentation ago and talking about how self-managed teams, they become that bridging and bonding person for helping the people they're working with to make those connections in their communities or with people around them. It's very much about interdependency. So again, understanding that we are all connected. We're seeing something that's happened at the other side of the world has now spread and had a massive impact on all of us. And again, it's making us really kind of think about how connected we all are, and that there's this real interdependency. So we kind of scrap the word independence. We never use that. We talk about interdependency instead. Click off. So I haven't got time to talk about lots of the concepts and theories. There's lots and lots of theories. What I've got to say as well is this is applied theory. So this is all about application to practice. But the starting point for us, and one of the really most important ones, is Haltung. So this is a German term, and there's no English translation as such, but roughly it means your ethos, your mindset, and your attitude. So again, to kind of link back to what Ruth was saying about recruitment, and I saw some of the questions, Haltung is so important. So it's about your ethical orientation, your internal compass, and what we know to be right and wrong. And this is so important when we think about our current ways of working. It also helps us understand our purpose to our work as well, and it links to people like Carl Rogers and the core conditions and authenticity and congruence. And Murd came up with social pedagogical Haltung, which is based on 2 pillars of comprehension and regard. So we have to understand people, we have to understand systems, we have to understand the way the world works for people, and we also have to respect that there can be lots of differences. But Haltung also links to not just individuals, we have our own Haltung, but it also links to teams, organisations and legislation. So we see that teams have a Haltung, organisations have a Haltung, and legislation has a Haltung. So if you walk into a building, an organisation, you can often feel, you get a sense from the environment of that team's Haltung. But it's very much about bringing your whole self to work. And what we've talked about with our students is we've coined a phrase called values alive in practice. So Haltung isn't just about you say you've got these values, it's about demonstrating your behaviour in practice. So your values are alive in your practice. So when we came across the Human Learning System, we were really excited because we felt there was some real synergy with social pedagogy. And what I saw was this kind of graphic in my head where we've got legal frameworks and safeguarding frameworks. We always work within these. And in the report, there's this really great quote where somebody says, our teams work within safe parameters and regulatory guidance. It isn't anarchy. And I thought that was really good because I think people think, oh, this is really lovely. You're kind of throwing everything out and, but in reality, what about safeguarding? What about, the real difficult, complex work that we're doing? And actually, we're working within these legal and safeguarding frameworks. And actually, there is a bit of anarchy. If you think about the political definition of anarchy, there is a little bit of anarchy in human learning systems and social pedagogical practice because there is a bit of freedom then. So in the middle here, you can see we have this agreed purpose and our values alive in practice. So these are our kind of guiding principles, our ethical orientation that keeps our practice rooted. But then in the middle here, we have this liminal space where we're able to try things out. So we will reflect, we'll think about our knowledge. This is our head. And so then we will try something out and we will kind of build relationships, reflect on it, see how that feels, and then adapt our practice. So again, there's this real link to human learning systems. And I think here is human learning systems, and in this space, social pedagogy can really support the development of practice there. Again, it's not linear, so you don't start with the head and move to the hands and the heart. The 3 work together in collaboration, and sometimes the heart might pull you a little bit more than your head, but it's finding the balance. So to quickly kind of give an overview of where we see the real synergies, the human part, again, bringing the human back into practice is really important. And the variety, variety, empathy, strengths and trust, again, really resonated with us when we saw this, and trust being really important. But again, trust is really linked to your behaviour. So how you demonstrate trust, how you demonstrate your values in your behaviour really helps develop trust within the relationships with people you're working with, but also your teams and organisations. So we use things like 3 Ps, so the professional, private and personal, to look at how we build relationships, things like the diamond model, and by nature, social pedagogy is relational at its core. The learning bit, again, social pedagogy is all about using educational approaches, and we don't mean education as in university or school systems, but educational learning in much broader text. So we're not fixing problems, we're helping people find solutions. We're working with, we're not doing things to. And one of the things we really loved is the positive error culture. We thought that was really fantastic. And for us, social pedagogy is about psychological safety, and you can only have positive error culture if you provide psychological safety. So we spend a lot of time with our students looking at what does that mean? How do you work with things like resistance and conflict? How do you provide psychological safety so that people are able to challenge and there is that conflict there? Because actually conflict and resistance can be really positive. They can help teams grow and develop their practice. Also, practice between professionals and the people they're supporting as well. So it's about repairing relationships once there's been conflict. The systems, so again, social pedagogy is really interested in interdependency, like I say, make meaningful belonging, and this links really well with human learning systems. So people are seen as resourceful, there's shared power. I liked Gary Wallace yesterday talked in his about the work that is being done, that the kind of getting people rehoused in a really short space of time, but then working with people in very different ways, and kind of that devolved decision making and shared power and different ways of working was really interesting. And this is about participation. And what we talk about in social pedagogy is very much about active participation. So where is this happening? Where is the behaviour that is demonstrating there is active participation going on? This isn't just something that we are nodding our heads to or saying is happening. It's very much around ethical leadership. So like I said, this is everyday leadership. It's not just about managers or leaders or organisations. It's about practitioners being everyday leaders in their practice with the people that they're working with as well. So to summarise, complexity. So we're in this really, I mean, life was complex before, but now it's become even more complex and we're in real crisis. And we feel that social pedagogy has a real kind of, it can help people navigate this complexity. So the whole point of social pedagogy is that we have to be able to work with uncertainty, tension and complexity. So our students on our MA learn a lot around the work around Bowman and his theories around uncertainty, around theory U, and about letting go of the old and thinking about new ways of working. Reflective practice is absolutely key. So it's constant, you know, are we on the right path? Should we be doing something different? How is this working for the person that I'm supporting? Does this matter? Is there a different way of doing it? Something, is this effective? Ethics of first practice is really important. So again, allows bespoke responses. And again, I've heard this in some of the other presentations, and this is really, really important. And the crisis at the minute is allowing that much more, that there's a bespoke responses. And our ethics and our ethical orientation means that we're constantly checking out if these are okay and if we're doing the right things. And this links very much to the guiding principles and navigation points. So to go back to my round circle with the human learning system and the legal frameworks and safeguarding frameworks, the head, heart, hands give us the navigation points that we can keep touching base and checking that we are doing what we should be doing. And they're our guiding principles, keep us anchored to know that we are working in an ethical way. So finally, Jensen 2018, who's a Danish social blog, has done a lot of research, and he's set out these 6 guidances around social pedagogical practice that, again, I think fit really well with human learning system and currently what is happening with the COVID crisis. Is that goals are developed along the way, they're not at the start. So you use your relationships, and that's the key part to start with, is developing relationships, and then the goals come and they're developed collaboratively and with active participation. There's an acknowledgement that there are lots of different ways to reach these goals and that everything can be valid. And this again goes back to Haltung. It goes back to the notion that there should be comprehension and regard, and that we should respect people's differences and understand the different ways that people see the world, or might respond to changes in team working or organisational protocols. Teamwork matters, so how we view each other is really important and will influence the team. And again, we've seen this, Ruth talked about this in the self-managed teams. We're really lucky to have somebody who works for the wellbeing teams on our MA. And again, she talks a lot about how the teamwork matters. So you might not physically be together, but how they support one another, and there is that real meaningful belonging and shared accountability and shared ownership of the work that they're doing, as well as their own independent way of working. Everyday life should be an opportunity for growth and development. So again, the life space and the life space that we work with people is really important. And so using that life space to work alongside people is absolutely key. So that's all I wanted to say. Very quickly, just let you know that we've written a book, me and my colleague Ali. It says so, but this is kind of broadly, so it gives you some a really good kind of start if you want to find out a little bit more about social pedagogy. FEMPRA's website, there's a link there as well, is really good. They've got again some really good information on social pedagogy and some of the key theories and practice. Bit of a plug, sorry, shameless plug. Our Masters in Social Pedagogy, we were having a taster session on the 12th of May. If anybody wants to kind of join us to find out a little bit more, please email me. And we have a massive open online course that, again, is free to everybody and talks about social pedagogy and social pedagogy across Europe. So it gives you a little bit more information about it.